All right. We've got a fireside chat here for Relational AI. I have Nik the Greek, but he's not a gambler, but he's really good with numbers, I assure you. And he creates outstanding content, including the 12 Days of NeurIPS. And I'm sure all of you have already seen it, but if you haven't, you should check it out. So here is Nik. He's the VP of Research Machine Learning at Relational AI, and he is speaking on day one of the 2-day conference, AI and the Future of Finance at Georgia Tech. So Nik, thank you for being here. Don't know if you want to go in a couple different directions with that, but we would love to hear a little bit of a sneak preview on that presentation you're going to be giving on March 20th, I think it is.
Excellent. Thank you, Alec, for hosting me. And you're right, Nik, the old Nik the Greek and myself, we were good at probabilities, different types of probabilities. One for gambling, this one is for AI. It's all about probabilities. So yes, first of all, I'm happy to go back. I live only 3 miles from Georgia Tech. That's my alma mater. I got my PhD from there. I've actually taught at the business school before. I've done executive education, and I've been in that venue many times as a student. So I'm very happy to get there. I think it's a great initiative. Georgia Tech has a great department in finance. And, for us in AI, finance was always been a little bit kind of like on the boring side. Okay, but that's where the money comes. To be honest, anecdotally, in NeurIPS, the conference that you mentioned before, the first sponsors were basically tech companies and maybe these so, and then all of a sudden when AI was discovered by finance and they started flooding with sponsor tables, people were, oh, the financiers are coming here. Then they realized that they're nice people, they're nothing against them, and they've actually a lot of researchers go these days over there, and a lot of research, very good research, is coming up from financial companies. I want to just give like a thumbs up for Capital One, because they gave us a really nice workshop expo at NeurIPS, talking about some interesting, extraordinary things they're doing with tables. So sorry for the long introduction, but my talk is going to be all about how we are doing knowledge graphs for many things, including GraphRag. GraphRag there's a lot of, I think there's going to be 3 talks around that in the conference, so it's heating up. But the problem where everybody wants is a very, well thought, reliable, robust, error-free knowledge graph. So this is what we're going to talk. We're not there yet. We can do that 100% with language models, but we're working on that.
I love it. And I'm gonna double click on that one, right? Because we had talked about this previously as well, is some of the stuff that is pretty exciting out there in the financial services ecosystem is enabling, whether it be investment bankers or traders and others, maybe you get a little bit of edge by being able to interface through a semantic layer or otherwise into data sets that historically maybe have been difficult for them to access or otherwise. And I think to your point, knowledge graphs and GraphRag, I think within the financial services community, there's a major shift that's underway where they're moving away from not just the efficiency use case, but getting into all sorts of other areas of driving growth and revenue and so on and so forth. So would love to hear a bit more about, how you think about GraphRag and knowledge graphs in the context of finance or other industries as well. It's all very appropriate.
So, for decades, the problem has been how do we access the data, and forget about the AI models, statistical models, trading models. Sometimes the value is connecting, one column from a table with another column from another table. You do a correlation, and that correlation is gold. Okay, something very simple. Like people would think that by now, that should be a commodity, but it's not. We had to work many years to, first of all, create the infrastructure, the cloud, the hardware to load all this data. Then, Snowflake came with the data cloud. We put them in the same place, but still, the problem of anybody in the company, regardless of the background, thinks about a question, and that question translates into how data are connected. It's still a problem. And that's where AI is bringing the revolution. The problem we're trying to solve, it's always the same. Making, data accessible to everyone and asking a question in an easy way as possible. Okay, the semantic layer, the knowledge graphs are, the basic ingredient. AI cannot work with them, and we got plenty of examples. We participate in this, text to SQL competitions. You will see the minute you build the ontology right and you have it, things go very smooth, much smoother.
Yeah, one of the things we have also talked about just is the importance of decision-making velocity, right? And in finance in particular, the decisions that are made and milliseconds matter. So I guess one more question on that. How do you think about, and maybe we'll explain this a little bit to those that are a little bit less technical, right? So folks that are listening to this that are more so on the business side, how do you explain to them the idea of what a knowledge graph is and the way that it elevates business logic to enable faster decision making? How do you kind of unpack that a little bit? Because I've heard you do a great job on that in the past in other interviews.
So the best definition that I heard was from someone who wasn't technical at all. He was here at RelationalAI, and he said knowledge graph is the language that both machines and humans understand. It's the glue. I think it was, great respect to the person who said that. And that's exactly what it is. You can take an ontology and a knowledge graph and basically reads as you see it. You don't have to be an expert. Anyone can do that. And at the same time, a SQL engine, I don't know, a graph database can read and do things of that. But I think the best way to understand it is with a use case. And let's take a use case from a telco that we've worked with, and they had a problem with fraud. Okay, people were stealing phones, like phones were disappearing. Now, if you take the life cycle of a phone, like you go to the website, you order it, the order goes to the warehouse, it goes to finance, it's been shipped to you, somebody, you activate it, you cancel the subscription, all that stuff. This can be in I don't know, tens or hundreds databases in different places, built by different teams, provided by different apps, trying to find out whether fraud is like it's a journey. Think about like a path leading you to the fraudster. And in many cases could be like two people, the person who put the order, shares the same credit card with the person who canceled the phone. And you say, something's going on. Now that sounds like so simple. And that's something that everybody understands. Like if you were an expert and you were working in one of these companies, it will be, this could be your hypothesis. Now, what you understand, with these nodes and paths, and what is actually down there, the way that the data is stored, is like a huge gap. It's a huge gap. And that's what the semantic layer is doing. It's closing this gap. It's making it, much easier. Now, you're lucky and you had them on a database, which means you at least have columns with names, I don't know, credit cards and stuff like that. Imagine what happens when you have everything in documents. If the orders were just like documents here and there. And now you have to answer the same question. Like now you have to build these connections automatically. That's what GraphRag is doing with automatic building of knowledge graphs. And I'm not going to say everything. I was just going to, people want this will come and listen to the presentation. I don't know if they're being recorded, but that's kind of like the idea. Okay. So now language models are giving us this thing of even for more messy data to make them more structured, audit them and then query them.
All right, that's perfect. And I've got one last question for you. I know we've got a little bit of a constraint here, but I want to ask this question about that article we were talking about and some of that stuff around the internet going dark. So real quick, because it connects to all of this, right? Agents are a very important topic, agentic workflows and taking care of, taking actions on our behalf, et cetera. So in 90 seconds or less, no pressure, if AI agent and that vision is realized that we all collectively are starting to understand, if AI agents out in the consumer web, et cetera, if it's realized, is there the potential that the internet could quote unquote go dark?
As you know, every time I present, I have to make a reference to a book. For those of you who don't know me, I have about 4,000 books, 2,500 physical and
you read a lot. I appreciate
I read a lot. I like books. So, and you see how it's going to connect to your question. So there's a book by Stephen Johnson a very favorite of business schools, especially actually learned about him from a professor, my good friend Steus Kavadias, who's out now at Cambridge. It was a business school professor at Georgia Tech. It's called How We Got to Now. It's the history of innovation. And there's a question, so I'm going to ask you, how did water chlorination help, skateboarding? Okay, it sounds like completely. I'm not going to tell you the answer. There's also, if you don't like reading, there's an Amazon Prime or Netflix documentary on that. It's in 6 pieces. But okay, maybe I should say that very quickly. Water chlorination brought invention of swimming pools. Okay, because before you couldn't have a swimming pool, the water was going bad. And then swimming pools in Los Angeles. Then we got a drought. Swimming pools empty. People, what are they doing with that? Skateboarding. That's how skateboarding went. And it is the same case over here, So for many years, everybody's heard about, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and blockchain. We all got fascinated, but we just couldn't see how this could spark a revolution. Yes, it brought some bubbles. Some people made money. It's another thing to trade, but it hasn't made a difference. And here comes this article that you're referring to that was mind-boggling and says, okay, people, when they do transactions, or even agents, if they're using banks, a bank always has to refer to a physical presence. So let's say that you have a bunch of agents going and doing transactions and trading, and you connect them with a bank account. If they go and do anything wrong, and they go offline, you can always cut the money. You stop the bank account, and you can trace what happened and find out. They cannot hide money. It's there. But imagine now the agents opening Bitcoin wallets or Ethereum wallets where there's no traceability. They can hide the accounts. They can make collusion schemes that you cannot trace, you cannot find. And there is a big fear that if AGI happens, I don't think it can happen right now. We build the agents, we control them, but there is a possibility that if it's like, the bank rolling, it could fund potential illicit activity of agents could be cryptocurrencies, and now they can become powerful in doing things that they're not supposed to do. Or I hope they can do good things, but it also can go bad. So that combination between agents and crypto can be explosive in a good way or in a bad way. I think the article talks about the bad way, about internet becoming, everything running. So if they get that money now, they can right now you're designing ads thinking that you're having a person, where you're going to have agents, it's a different story. So things can go, in strange ways.
The world's changing very fast. We appreciate your time, Nik. We're going to wrap it up here, but I know everyone's excited about the conference next week, and we look forward to learning about the experience and catching up again soon.
Thanks very much for your time, Alec. Thanks for inviting me.
Likewise. Take care.